Say it's all about rights, but rights can't fix the wrong that we do to God each day. How long can we stand strong? And all I got is one question left. If we turn our backs and spit in his face, is God still gonna bless the USA?
Greetings, Patriots. I'm Perry Green, and this is God in America. Today we want to discuss disarming hypocrisy. There's a preacher's story about a chauffeur who drove a famous scientist to a series of presentations about a discovery he made. One day after the 20th presentation, the chauffeur jokingly turned to the scientist and said, "Professor, I've heard your speech so many times I could give it myself." Professor smiled and said, "I'll bet you $50 you can't." "You're on," said the chauffeur. They stopped the car. The two exchanged suits. They arrived at the banquet. The chauffeur, dressed in a tuxedo, sat at the head table. With a chauffeur's cap in hand, the professor sat quietly at the rear of the room. When it came time for the program, the chauffeur gave the speech flawlessly. There was a standing ovation when he was finished. Afterwards, the MC walked to the lectern and said, "Since we have a little extra time, let's have some questions and answers." The chauffeur stood and pondered the first question. He didn't know about the question, let alone the answer. He took a deep breath, stood tall and straight as possible, stepped to the microphone and said, "That's just about the dumbest question I've ever heard. It's so dumb, I bet even my chauffeur could answer it," and walked off. The scientist and the chauffeur were practicing hypocrisy. The word hypocrite means actor. Both men were acting different roles. Jesus warns us about hypocrisy in Matthew 6. In verse 2, he cautions, "Therefore, when you do a charitable deed, do not sound a trumpet before you as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets." In verse 5, he advises, "And when you pray, you shall not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the corners of the streets, that they may be seen by men." Then down in verse 16, "Moreover, when you fast, do not be like the hypocrites with a sad countenance, for they disfigure their faces that they may appear to men to be fasting." Now go back and replace hypocrites with actors. Gene Hackman was one of my favorite actors. He, his wife, and his dog died mysteriously in February. I liked his acting because he could convincingly play good and bad guys. My late wife mentioned that despite his acting skills, he was not a romantic figure. The last few years have felt like we're living on a movie set. Many governmental leaders portray what their constituents want while on the campaign trail. Then when they're elected, these actors take off their masks and show their true colors. My home state of Oklahoma has the phony reputation of being politically conservative as a state. In the presidential elections, 100% of our counties voted against Obama and for President Trump. Our federal senators and representatives appear conservative while campaigning, but most are not. They typically vote with the Marxist Democrats in their respective houses. The politicians are wolves in sheep's clothing. They act like conservatives. They know they cannot get elected if they show their true colors. Despite our reputation of having a supermajority Republican House and Senate, Oklahoma is more purple than red. We can challenge the status quo when we remember that people do not do what is expected, they do what is inspected. Our elected officials are no different. If you live in Oklahoma, you know I'm speaking the truth. I interviewed Ash in America some time ago. She lives in Colorado with a Democrat supermajority. That state is passing all the Marxist-based policies they want. They have had sanctuary cities for illegals as well as many climate change laws. Yet we can't get many basic conservative laws passed in Oklahoma. The reason is the actors in our legislature. Oklahoma is not the only purportedly conservative state that has this issue. I have a source in Iowa who says the same about her state, and no, it's not my daughter, but it is all about the actors. It becomes the citizens' responsibility to address these issues and take control of the government with an overwhelming mandate to return to the foundational American precepts. We do not need or want Marxists ruling us. Lenin, Stalin, Pol Pot, Castro, and the Kim regimes have killed millions of innocent citizens in their countries in order to rule effectively with their brands of tyranny. The enemy will advance if we, the people, stand down and refuse to defend our republic vigilantly. Patrick Henry roused his fellow Virginians to prepare for the war for independence. He knew the conflict was inevitable and spoke out against tyranny and in favor of action in his famous speech on March the 23rd, 1775, in St. John's Church, Richmond, Virginia. In part, he declared, "There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations and who will raise up friends to fight our battles for us. The battle, sir, is not to the strong alone. It is to the vigilant, the active, the brave. Besides, sir, we have no election. If we were base enough to desire it, it is now too late to retire from the contest. There is no retreat but in submission and slavery. Our chains are forged. Their clanking may be heard on the plains of Boston. The war is inevitable, and let it come. I repeat, let it come. I encourage you to ask God for the gift of discernment as you address the current policies and politicians of our state and federal governments. The battle for America's soul is not over. The fight is still on. Follow President Trump's lead and courageously stand up for our convictions. Let's challenge our elected officials to be themselves and not pretend. If we go along to get along, we will soon be gone. Thank you for listening. As we close, let's keep the light of discerning between hypocrisy and truth burning.
Yeah, if we turn our backs and spit in his face, will God still bless?